This is a quick video on using CSV files and creating pivot tables, and a little bit of a demo on pivot tables and sort of what they can do for you. So the question that was raised was about filtering under they're trying to understand check-ins that were happening in class times that were happening at the same time. So trying to understand if you have a CrossFit class and a boot camp class, they're both happening at 8 a.m., trying to be able to separate that data out. Currently in PushPress, you're able to sort of see it by time. So you understand the overall attendance in the gym, but it's hard to actually filter by class type. So if you filter your report based on whatever month you want to do, I'm doing this from July, the month of July in 2019, when things were actually happening in the gym, or we weren't, in pandemic land. So if I already download that report, and if you open it up in Excel or Sheets or whatever you guys are using, you're going to get something that looks like this. It's a whole bunch of raw data, and it's not really very meaningful. For the sake of a pivot table, what we're going to be doing is we are going to reorganize this and clean it up a little bit, but for the most part, it's going to sort of stay as it is. The big things I'm changing here are related to the titles, and this is what just makes it a little bit easier for us to actually filter things and be able to sort of try to get what we're looking for out of them. The first thing I do here is I combine the name. So if you look at the data, once it comes in, we have a first name and a last name for every person. So I create a column just called name. And then in my name column, there's actually a command that is, I can't pronounce it, concatenate, whatever it is, concatenate, whatever. So if you use that, this command allows you to basically merge two strings together into one cell. So if we do that command, B2, we want to actually add a space so it reads first name space last name and not just one word that's all together. So that's the quotation marks just adding a space. And then we do C2. So as you can see, that combined to this cell right here. So if you then click and drag all this down, it will fill in all these names for you. One thing that you do want to do with any of these formula things that we're tweaking is right now this is pulling over. It's a formula based on the data that's here. So we need to convert this into just dumb text. So if you just copy, this is just going to be a quick demo. If you guys just copy everything you have in that column and then you repaste it as values only, the cell turns into just text, which is going to be a little bit more meaningful for us, and that then allows us to then go through and delete these columns and just get them out of the way. You can delete things like the nickname for a member. That's not really very useful. I tend to leave in plan name, coach names. If you want to leave that in, you guys can. Class title is important, but what's actually more important is going to be calendar item for us. Class title start getting into, we actually sort of, if we do a hero workout, we'll actually change the title of that class to that hero workout, so that will display when someone's checking in. Calendar item is what's going to allow you to understand, your CrossFit class versus your boot class camp or whatever you might be doing. So I tend to change this one just to be really specific about it. I just call it class type. Now, the next thing we want to do here is this column that is start, date, time. This column actually has 2 bits of data in it. It has the date as well as the time. So in terms of separating these out, we're going to insert a couple more columns here. Go left, go right, whatever you associate with. We're going to call the first column date and the second column time. Now, just like there's a formula to get the names together in here, there's a similar formula to pull out the date and pull out the time. To pull out the date, it is INT, which stands for integer, and then just enter the cell. So integer H2. That does give you a awkward looking number, so you have to go up and you reformat that cell to be, you want to tell it that you are looking for a date there, and then we'll convert that into an actual date, which is that's actual meaningful data for us. Similar to that formula, if we go on to the time, for this one, what we're looking to do is the cell, or sort of the original cell, so that's going to be H2 for us right now, minus INT H2. I don't know why these formulas work, but this is just what they are. Same thing as before, it drops in as a bunch of data, which you need to then go up to format, number, and tell it you are trying to put a time in here. So that, see, we have a 7/1/2019, 6 a.m. That pulls the data over. And we then get, it will click and drag and pull all that stuff down. Now, I have another sheet set up that's cleaned up a little bit more, so we're going to jump over to there. Just like we did with the names here before, where you want to copy everything out of here and then repaste it as values. So that becomes just sort of raw data, and then you can actually delete this column if you want to. You don't need it anymore. So if we go over to my demo sheet here, The red columns here are the ones that we were just talking about. So the name, the date, the time. I have my class type and plan, which were basically just columns that I renamed for the sake of just organizing things, and I left in the start time here. Now, after you have all this data cleaned up and titled however you guys want to, and you feel good about it, you're basically just going to highlight everything, go up to the data tab, and down here there's a thing that says pivot table. You're going to want to make the pivot table. I always like do it on a new sheet, so if you go back to this and tweak something, it will actually pull that over for you. It's smart enough to do that. Or you can turn it into the existing sheet, but I've always done a new one. So you do a new sheet, you get your pivot table here. Now, right off the bat, it doesn't look like anything, and I think this is why this becomes intimidating for people. But what we have over here is our rows, columns, and values and filters. This is what we use to create the pivot table. So what we're looking for here, we're going to, if we go down to class type, it's generating a table that lists my different class types. So we have our Academy class, which is our lower barrier to entry one. We have CrossFit. General, I think, is just a category for some reason. Kids, open gym, and tweens. Now, the next thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to understand times for these. So I'm going to add another row underneath my class type for time. Now, the table's building out a little bit more. So we have our class types, my Academy, my CrossFit. I still don't know what the 5 p.m. general is. Kids and open gym and tweens. These are the different class times that we're running for these classes. So what you can do with the pivot table is you can turn this stuff on or off and you can start trying to reorganize it based on the data that's in your sort of original tab here. You guys can see where this is going. Now, the next thing, the question that we were trying to do is understanding the check-in data per these times for the different classes. So we can see right here, we have a 7 a.m. CrossFit and a 7 a.m. Academy, or it just happens at similar times. So the next thing we're going to do is you would think this would be in columns, but it's actually a little bit confusing here. It's not. We're going to go down to values. And if we go down to value and go to successful check-in, that will show a check-in at that time, it then propagates out the table. And you can see different check-ins. So for my Academy class, we had a total of 50 check-ins. 11 of them were at 7 a.m., 9 a.m., 24 were at 7 p.m. Our CrossFit class, you can see our 6 a.m. is by far the busiest. And this is a nice way of just breaking down this information. And what you can do is this is really one of those tools that you're really limited just by your own creativity in terms of what information you're trying to pull out and what you're trying to filter. And what's nice is you can build off these. So this is your actual pivot table here. So if you click on this, I will sometimes just highlight it so it's a little bit easier for me to actually sort of see where it is on the actual sheet, whatever color you guys want to do. So this is the pivot table. If you click here, it will always bring up this pivot table editor on the side. And this is where you control what cells you're bringing or you're importing. You can actually filter things like you can say, you can add a filter this for successful check-ins. Or actually, if we want to filter, let's say you want to filter the times. Right now it's showing all items. You can now turn off certain times that you want on or off. So if you have certain class times that you're trying to filter or you're trying to really try to narrow your data down, pivot tables are a very powerful tool to try to really start taking these raw data files that we have access to in our member management software and being able to run them through a series of filters and get some data that we're actually looking for that's a bit more it's a bit more meaningful to us sometimes. We're trying to find something specific. Anyways, I hope that helps. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I will try to put those little formula things that I used in the comments here, and see everyone soon.